What's up, guys? It's Lance back with another interview. Today we have AJ Acosta. He was a Foot Locker national champion in high school. He won the Nike Outdoor 2 mile. He is a two-time USA junior champion in the 1500, an eight-time All-American at the University of Oregon. He's part of Oregon's 1-2-3 sweep at the NCAAs. If you haven't seen that race, go watch it. It's absolutely awesome, electric. He set three records while at Oregon: the indoor mile, the DMR, excuse me, and also the 1500. Those are some records to have there. He, excuse me, good grief. He has a mile PR of 353 and a 1500 meter PR of 336. And currently, he lives in LA and coaches at International School of Los Angeles. Quite the resume. So, how's your day been so far, AJ?
Day has been great so far. Appreciate you taking the time out of your day. I know kids these days are busy. And I'd be remiss to say that I no longer hold any of those records
Yeah.
because kids these days they're just blowing us by. So those are records from a bygone era. But I had to say, hey, at one point in time, I did beat Prefontaine's record. That was many moons ago. No longer the case.
And that's still something so awesome to be able to say as a runner, and especially in the US. That is something super, super awesome to say.
Yeah, I get to say I beat C Prefontaine's record. Everyone else is like, well, I guess I took AJ Acosta's record. Ho hum.
So, AJ, how did you get into running?
Well, I got into running back in elementary school. I always knew I sort of had an aptitude for it. So I don't know if they still do this in elementary school, but we used to have the presidential fitness test, and one of them was the pacer run. So you'd have to run the course of the basketball court. And I was always like, we had to end at the end of the period. Like I would just keep going. I played basketball and baseball growing up. And when I got to middle school, I think I ran like 5:14 for the 1600. And I was like, oh, okay, I'm pretty good at that. But I didn't have a frame of reference really for track. It was just like I beat the supposedly most athletic kid at the school. So I was like, I guess I'm just going to keep doing this. And then got into high school. I had run cross country my freshman year, and I really wasn't sure if I was going to run track because I was adamant I'm going to play baseball, and went to the trial meetings and everything. And then one of the seniors on the team, I was going on a training run with him. I was, sort of getting into, I'm really not sure what I want to do, and I had made varsity my freshman year. Didn't really do that much. I had some injuries and stuff, but did enough to make the varsity. And I asked him, I was like, you know, I'm not really sure what to do. And the senior told me, he was like, do you want to be the worst guy on the best team? Meaning, do you want to be the worst runner that's on the best team? Because the track team they had always won league. Or do you want to be the best guy on the worst team? Meaning the best baseball player on the worst team. El Camino High School, I believe, had won 0 games the previous year. And I was like, you know what? I want to be the best guy. I mean, I want to be the worst guy on the best team. Like, I'd rather be on a fun team than just be the Mike Trout of the Angels, where we're not enjoying that success. So that was the biggest thing for me. I want to be part of the best team. Um, and then from there, the rest is sort of history. I ran 4:18 in the mile my freshman year, made the state meet, and like I said, the rest is sort of history from there.
So in high school, you said in middle school you ran 5:14 for 1600, you believe. Do you always run 1600 at the high school level as well?
Yeah, so we did. Let's see. So I ran. I mean, in high school, I ran 4x4, 800, 1600 meter, 32. Um, I think the only time we didn't run the 1600 was uh, I ran two 1500s when I was in high school. But yeah, for the most part, 1600.
Okay, I was just kind of curious because everyone seems to be at 1500. In the state of Illinois, we're still at 16, and I actually couldn't tell you like off the top of my head another state that immediately does that because a lot of schools do 1500 and 5K, and we're still at 3 miles and 16. So I was just kind of
Yep.
So
Yeah,
you,
I mean, yeah, cross country is kind of interesting too, right? Because we have Mount Sac here in California, and that's 2.94. And then we have races that are 3 miles, and some of them are 5K. It's kind of all over the place.
so you were able to drop 56 seconds in the mile in a year. So did you start taking running seriously your freshman year, or were you kind of just messing around, quote unquote, still?
I didn't really take it seriously until, I mean, I think during the track season, definitely started to take it more seriously. Um, but I mean, I played basketball in the winter, and that was I think good for me because it sort of gave me that break in between. Um, and then really the summer in between my freshman year, um, going from track into cross country, uh, I think I still did a summer camp for basketball because I was like, well, I'm going to play basketball and run cross country and track. Um, and I think really after my sophomore year was when I really started to take it seriously because at our school, we if you didn't participate in the basketball tryouts, you like the day that they happened, you wouldn't make the team. And my junior year cross country, I had made Foot Locker, and I wasn't going to miss out running obviously a national meet for basketball tryouts. It didn't matter how good I was. And so that from really that point was was when it became serious because I didn't have anything else to do in the winter.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. I was just kind of curious, because that would kind of feed into my next question. But being able to drop 56 seconds, that's pretty freaking awesome. What caused that to happen? What would guess I could say, what did some of your younger training years look like?
Um, I I personally I would not ascribe it necessarily to any one thing in training. I'm sure as maybe your dad or some other coaches would say like it is very hard to drop that amount of time at that age. But I mean, I think obviously, natural talent played a big part in it. I mean, my aerobic age at by the time I got to my freshman year when I ran that 418, I wasn't very good in cross country. So I think it was sort of a blend between sort of that speed. I had that aerobic engine from basketball. Um, but I think really it just I was very lucky. I had a great coach when I was in high school. My coach Tom Cluse, he ran the steeplechase. He ran at Columbia in college, and so you know he's made multiple U.S. meets, and so I feel very fortunate that I was under his tutelage because I'm sure I would have run fast, but probably not as fast with him. So, and I think that played more a part in, there's people that are talented that run fast, but some of them don't ever reach sort of that top echelon. And I think Tom was one of the biggest reasons for that because he had a plan, he executed the plan. That sort of I'm sure we'll touch on it later. Has like really inspired how I think about coaching. So, but I would say the biggest thing um, is not specializing at an early age, so that by the time you get to the end of your high school career, that you're still excited about running and want to be out there.
Now, when you say specializing, what do you mean by that?
I think I do see a lot of so the school that I coach at, we are a international school, and prior to when I got there, they weren't really in like the CIF or I think for you it's the IHSAA or whatever it is. They weren't on like the high school system. They were much more on like a club system, and kids do soccer year round, or they do basketball year round, or they do volleyball year round. Um, and I think more of those like club sports tend to you know travel teams where they're sort of doing everything all year. I think why I part of why I was able to be so successful is I didn't focus on just one thing. I did basketball growing up. I did baseball growing up. I did running. Um, and I think having sort of that diversity in the sports I played or activities that I engaged in, like I think it helped keep me more balanced because I wasn't so focused on one particular thing all year round. Now, eventually I did get to the point, where I was very serious about running, wanted to run in college, and that became a thing. But that was when I was 16, 17. It wasn't when I was like, uh, 9 or 10 years old, where I'm playing soccer from, January. You're playing all year long. So
So what did some of the specific training look like for you in high school?
yeah, so I can't say that it was particularly standard, but I would say, you know, um, my freshman year, I did around 20 miles in cross country, 25 miles. I was about 25 miles in track. My sophomore year was, right around 40. Track season got up to about high 40s, low 50s. Junior year was in the 50s. So there was kind of this natural progression of, allowing my body to adapt to the mileage. Um, and we did a lot of, cross country. We did a lot of 800 repeats. We did a lot of hill workouts. Um, we did, I got to the point eventually where I was doing tempo runs of like, 3 to 4 miles at say 5:30 pace. Um, we did a Michigan workout, I remember. So Michigan workout is 1600 on the track, uh, about 1600 meters off the track at tempo pace, and a 1200 on the track, mile off, 800 on, mile off, 400 depends on how you do the Michigan. Um, we did 400-meter repeats. I mean, there's you can sort of slice it and dice it. I think Tom had a good diversity of different workouts to sort of challenge different runners, their strengths and weaknesses, and sort of work on different, aerobic systems or speed, things like that. So we kind of did it all. I think I probably not here at my parents' house. I do have my old training log, and it is kind of fun to look back at it versus what I did in college or in the pros.
Okay, so you said it's fun to look back at. You logged all the way through.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, sometimes it wasn't regularly, but I remember last time I was at my parents'. I found an old training log. It had about 3 months worth of training in there, and it was from I want to say December of 2005 through about the end of February. And I wish I was better about it. It's something that I'm trying to stress to the kids that I coach. I use a great app called VDOT where I can put the workouts on there, and if they have a watch, it logs it, or they can go in there and do it themselves. But really, yeah, I wish I had logged more consistently so that you know you can see from sophomore year you're doing 8 by 200 or 10 by 200 at 35 seconds, and by your senior year it's 10 by 200 at 28 seconds, or whatever the case may be. And I think especially from a coaching perspective, being able to show different kids, hey, just because you're running this now doesn't mean you can't run this down the line. But yeah, I wish I had logged more, and it's something that I try to stress to my kids that I'm coaching now.
So what would you say the importance of logging is? Because we love to log. We have two options. I don't know if you know Steeple Web. It's pretty big here in the Midwest. I don't know if you guys have it there on the West Coast. Um, you can fill out a lot of information such as your route, the shoes you wear, the temperature, like you name it. It's pretty awesome. But then we can also use Strava. I personally use Strava because I like to excuse me, I like to let people know what I'm doing. I'm not really protected with my training at all. And I love using Strava. But what would you say the importance of logging is?
It's a great question. I think first and foremost, the importance is, for me to see your progression, not only from year to year, but within a season. Um, I think that one, to make sure you're doing the work, I think that's important. But two, like, if you are feeling low energy or you're feeling tired, I think it's good to be able to look back at the last few weeks and say, um, hey, your workouts have maybe not been where they're supposed to be. Let's talk about it. I think it opens up the conversation a little bit about, hey, this is where I think you should be. Um, and it just sort of creates that dialogue. I do like VDOT personally because it syncs with a lot of things. It syncs with Strava, Coros, Garmin, Apple Watch. Um, and so, if you have one of those fancy Garmin watches, it syncs up your heart rate data, things like that. And I think that's important too. But yeah, I think as a coach, it's good to, reflect on successes and maybe things that weren't successful. I think there's a lot of ways to get to the top of the mountain. There's lots of trails up, and I don't really think that there's I don't think the workouts are in the magic is in the workouts. I think you can certainly mess up, but I think there's lots of ways to carve the turkey, and having the ability to look back at the workouts and reflect on, hey, maybe this wasn't the right time of the year to do this, or maybe we should have done less speed work at this time. Like whatever the case may be, I think it's good for coaches to be able to look at that retrospectively to make improvements because at the end of the day, we all want our athletes to run to the best of their ability. Um, and I think if there's that sort of, we don't have that reflection period, we can't help our athletes be the best that they can be.
Right.
And, we can get in a rut. So I think it's one of the most important things you can do as a young athlete. It's coming from someone that one wants his athletes to do it, and two wishes I had done it more, so I could see sort of uh, that progression.
Yeah, I love that answer. I definitely like that a lot. One of my favorite things about it, is definitely since I said I use Strava. When I look at my Strava, it'll say like a year ago today. So I like to look back and see what I did then. But for the longest time, I used that website called SteepleWeb. So when I really want to go back to when I was in like sixth grade and stuff like that, I'll go back to that, which I think is super awesome. And I really enjoy looking back at it and seeing what I did and kind of the notes I had and trying to remember the run because I know they all, I mean, as you know, they blend together, but there is some memorable moments from runs that I do enjoy looking back on.
Yeah, I think absolutely. I mean, I think of, I was looking back. This isn't maybe like a workout specifically, but I keep like a little log of like, what our athletes are doing. And, I was looking back at, we had done some repeat 400. We did like 8x400. And, we're a small school, but I had five girls that did 8x400 with 2 minutes rest under a minute 40. And last year we were doing like a minute 50. So to be able to go to the group and say, look at all this hard work that you guys have put in. And in a year, you went from one girl able to do 145. Now we have five.
Yeah.
And then it becomes not just an individual achievement. It's like from a team perspective, your top girls or whatever, your leaders, you can say, hey, look what you've done to bring the rest of this team along. And that's a development activity as well, to like, okay, think about what have you done in this intervening period to get us here,
Yeah.
because it's not all coaching. It's part of building that culture and team. That's sort of where Leela's at. We're a 2-year program.
I like that a lot, especially bringing the culture to a team. I think the culture to a team, I can't stress enough how important it is. I mean, so you can agree with that as a coach. There's nothing more than having a good culture to a team. We've been jumping around with questions, and I apologize for that. I've been getting out of order. Kind of wanted to hit on some points that were there at the time, but like I said, you were blessed to be very, very good in high school. You were blessed to win a Foot Locker national title and win a 2 mile national title. What was that like? What was some of your racing experiences in high school?
I mean, I think incredible is the big one that comes to mind. And for me, when I was in high school, I remember reading the book Sub Four about Alan Webb, and that was like my dream. I was like, I'm gonna break 4 minutes in high school. Um, Back when kids didn't used to break 4 minutes. And the other thing was probably by about my sophomore year. So the Foot Locker, I'm from San Diego originally. That's where Foot Locker um, is held. And so starting my sophomore year, I would go down and watch. And I remember probably by like my junior, senior year, I used to watch all the old videos. And by old, I mean like Dathan Ritzenhine and, growing up, Meb Keflezighi, he had, at that point had just come off of his silver medal, I think it was in the marathon. And so like he was a San Diego kid and he got second at Foot Locker. So to be able to one race on my home course and win it was like that was incredible. The 2 mile championship in Greensboro, like that was obviously very exciting. But it's not in front of like a home crowd. But when you get to stuff like um, once I got to Oregon and running at even just dual meets, like I remember we had I think it was the Pepsi Challenge is what it was called. And it was like a quad meet. I think it was us, Washington, and a couple other schools. Minnesota was there. And I was running the 5K and it was cold and it was wet. And I was going against Hassan Mead, who is
Wow.
a great runner, great friend. And we had a battle. And I just remember that last lap, just hearing the roar of Hayward Field and feeling like them lift you up and going by him on the home stretch. Like I think collegiate racing, there's nothing really like it at a place like Oregon where there's no other atmosphere that matches it. And I've had the fortunate ability to run in Europe, I've run in Africa, I've run in South America, I've run in the US, um, and all these places are great, but nothing will ever match. I think probably my pinnacle, which is I don't know, unfortunate to say that at 22 years of age I hit my pinnacle, but it was going 1, 2, 3 at Oregon at the NCAA's, and I really didn't fully 100% believe in the Hayward Field magic. And then after that, it was just like I feel like that last 100, I went to a fugue state and just I mean I you could feel the crowd just pick you up. It's really hard to explain it if you've never experienced like a phenomenon like that. And I don't mean to say that to be like gatekeepy, but it's like it is truly an out of body experience. And so uh so many great memories at Hayward Field. I'm excited to hopefully go to the trials this year to see what they've done to my sweet baby Hayward Field.
Oh, you haven't been there yet?
I haven't been to the new renovated one, so um, nothing's ever going to beat the old West grandstands, and
Yeah.
but I guess institutions can't last forever, I suppose.
Yeah, I will say I have been blessed to be able to be the new Hayward. I went there for the trials and then outdoor nationals. We That's the second loudest stadium I've ever heard. So when Cindy McLaughlin broke her 400 world record in the hurdles for the first time, when I was there. And it was so loud. It was awesome. The atmosphere was unreal. I will say though, the loudest I've heard a stadium, Zach Levine hit a game winner in Chicago. And so that's probably the loudest I've heard a stadium. But
Yeah, I've definitely heard louder. You know what I love about running though is that um, not every experience is going to be similar, but like the experiences that we feel as runners is pretty ubiquitous. So I wanted to ask you, what was your favorite and most memorable race?
well, I've never been asked that.
Yeah, turn the tables.
I would say so maybe this year, like the first one that comes to mind, is probably the coolest place I've ever raced at was Hayward. I mean, that's gonna be you know
Can't
that.
beat it.
But I'd say my favorite race personally, um, that means the most to me. There's two that come to mind. Last track season, I had a really bad indoor season. We didn't know it at the time, but through my freshman cross country season and my freshman indoor year, um, I had low iron, like really low. And For perspective, I ran a 32. I ran 11:20, but my splits were 5:20 and six flat. I was hanging on for life.
A rough way to do it.
I was literally feeling dead before we hit the break line. I wouldn't wish low iron upon my worst enemy. But in outdoor, we raced this mile, and I didn't make the fast heat. I mean, I wasn't fast enough at the time yet. But then my dad, I believe, going into that week was like, "I think you can PR this year," and I did. I actually was closed in like a 63. And that it was probably the most memorable because going off of a slump and just being able to finally have a good one after such a long time um, was really
It's a
memorable.
great feeling.
It is, and like it honestly felt personal. A lot of people call me washed, and like I want to make sure that isn't true. And and then the second race, this year's Foot Locker Regionals, I was blessed to get 12th, and I thought that was pretty awesome, especially after state. I wouldn't say it's all on me, but I had a terrible race at state. I'd been sick for about 4 to 5 weeks before that. And we had, I don't know if you know any idea of when um, conferences here in Illinois, but it's like at the very end of
Is it
October.
like the end of October? Yeah.
It's like at the end of October. Beginning of September, something like, wait, no, end of September, sorry. Yeah, we'd be end of September because we had the earliest conference meet in the state. Anyway, I was sick from the week before that all the way up until state, and I had a terrible race at state. And so we were in the hunt to trophy, and we got sixth, and I just raced the worst race of the season. And then I came back and got 12th at Foot Locker. So that was pretty awesome for me in the fresh off race. But
Yeah. I mean, that's so great. I mean, that's what I mean about the ubiquity of the sport is that all it takes is that one little thing to turn it around. And like, you know, I'm sure it's tough to go through. Because I had those. I mean, my senior year of college, I just had bad race after bad race after bad race, and then I ran 3:38 in Europe, and it was like I'm back, and then I ran 3:55 after that in the mile, and so it's like that is a somewhat ubiquitous experience of like it doesn't matter if you're running 11 minutes for 2 mile or 4 minutes. These are somewhat universal experiences amongst all runners, and I think that's like the thing that I try to preach with my kids at least is like doesn't matter that I ran 3:53. Doesn't matter if you run 7:53. Like I want you to go out there, have a good time, hopefully stay healthy, and I hope you learn a lot about the sport. Doesn't matter at the end of the day what you run, as long as you have a good time doing it, walk away with those memories.
yeah, absolutely. I think I know that I'm gonna miss the team that I have right now. I think the worst decision I've made in my life is have all my best friends be seniors. I think that's the worst decision I made. It's gonna stink having not them there next year, but I love the guys that are able to be with us next year, so not too worried about it. But it's definitely something that I definitely regret doing. But
You just got to rebuild the culture, in the spirit of how they set it up. I mean, that's what you got to do.
absolutely, I've been definitely trying to figure out how to take leadership roles and try to do it the best I can, and ask some really smart guys about it as well. And that was actually going to be my next question. So thanks for setting me up. What did you do as a leader in high school? Because obviously you were the number one on your team. What did you do as a leader?
Yeah, I think something that I've thought about is, for our program at Leela, we've only been 2 years together. Last year was predominantly middle school kids. This year we have a smattering of freshmen and then like one junior, one sophomore, and we didn't have that sort of leadership. And I was trying to reflect on like, what did we do? And the only thing I can really think of is like we spent time with each other and we were intentional with our friendships and like how we did activities and how we brought each other along, and that it wasn't just the varsity kids. It was everyone was hanging out. Not to say like all 30 kids on the team are hanging out at once, but we did activities together. We we organize those runs together. And I think for me, like obviously winning an individual state title was one of the most important things to me. Um, but having the team there with me, it superseded even that. And one of like my lowest days was my senior year cross country. We should have probably won, and the team got fourth, so they didn't even qualify um, as a team. And those days, sometimes those things just happen. And um, man, what a lonely experience that was being at the state meet. I finally win my first state championship, and I don't have my team there. And so I think a lot about leadership is not just how do you bring uh, the top people along. It's like how are you bringing the rest of the team along? And I'm sure I didn't do it 100% correct when I was in high school, but I try and think about those things in terms of um, you know, how can we build a better environment for the kids we're coaching. And I wish I had something like very profound to say. I think I'm naturally charismatic and enthusiastic, and because I happen to be the fastest person, I ended up being a team captain. Um, and I think I did a pretty good job of that. But I think for me, how I want to be more intentional with, especially with my kids that I coach, like how can I give them those leadership qualities and not just people that are captains on the team. I think everyone should share that onus of like leadership and accountability, because if it falls on just one person, that's a really tough job. But I think the most important thing you said earlier is like building that team culture, so that everyone feels that joint responsibility, and it doesn't just fall on one person, because that can be kind of demoralizing. Um, so yeah, what tips do you have for me? How can I help my kids be a better leader?
How can you help your kids be a better leader? Support.
Get them off TikTok.
I'd say that for sure. So one of the ways that like immediately comes to my mind is honestly being supportive and not being afraid to help, because obviously you were in that position. And one of the things that worked for me was personally with my dad. He's my coach, he's in my house. So I mean, as is my dad, I need to stop looking at him as my dad always, and then as my dad and my coach, right? Um, so I think personally, what helped for me is he always let me figure out on my own. Like I remember I always used to get so mad. Like he would be like, problem solve. That was like the words that made me infuriated when I was younger. He always say problem solve. And I was like, "Ugh." And so like looking back at it now, I was like, I really want to do that with my child. Because for me personally, if I'm blessed to have a child, it helps me figure it out on my own. And it truly made me feel the importance of it instead of being forced into it. Um, Figuring it out on my own is probably one of the best motto, probably my motto of 2023. Um, I would say I matured as a human, as in 2023 a ton, and figuring out the importance of things. And I think that if you let those kids figure it out on their own, but also guide them at the same time, right? Like when they need it, give them that guidance and assistance. And I'm sure you don't have bad leaders on your team. I'm sure you don't, right?
I hope so.
There's always good kids on every team. That's my personal opinion, at least. I could be wrong. There could
No,
be
I
some
I
outliers.
think that's spot on. Like I think the difficult thing like as a coach is being like, how much of a rope do you sort of give someone to figure things out? Because on the one hand, I have all freshmen and they don't have upperclassmen to sort of lean on. So they're leaning on me for that. But like you're saying, at a certain level, you know, I can't run the race for them. And so they're the ones that have to sort of figure that out. So yeah, I think it's an interesting balance, especially where we're at right now. Uh, but I mean, I feel very fortunate to be in the position that I am, and have the kids that I have, because um, they are pretty great. I really like my kids. thankfully. And so yeah, I think in terms of like uh, leadership from myself personally, I think Tom was always great. He set a good example. Um, and like I said, I think it's building up those around you, because that's going to be ultimately what dictates the success of a program, not just from a short-term perspective, but from a longevity. Because if you have leaders that can continuously cultivate those relationships and the community aspect, that's going to be a successful program. So that's what I mean. That's what we're shooting for.
So I'm definitely right now I'm definitely taking notes on my personal leader. He's like my big brother. I love him to death. His name is Carson Maroon, and he's the fastest kid we've had ever come through our school. His first kid to break 15 minutes. We're a 1A school in Illinois, so we don't really have a super high bar, but first ever kid to break 15 minutes from our school, and I think he has a shot to go under 4:15 this outdoor season. And I think that's pretty awesome. And he'd be the first in our school for literally ever. And I think that's awesome. And taking notes from him, because he's literally the best to come through our school, and seeing how he does it um, is really helpful. Literally seeing it firsthand every single day, and being able to have the blessing of being able to talk to him as my big brother. And I think that's awesome. And he took me under his wing and kind of taught me how, gave me some tips. And I think that's huge, especially as a only child. I've never really had a big brother, so he's honestly probably the closest I've ever had to a big brother, and I think that's absolutely awesome to have that bond, and being able to see what he does and what works and what doesn't, because he tells me, he's honest with me. He's a fantastic dude. Um, Whatever works, he'll tell me, and what doesn't work, he'll tell me, and I think that's an also important thing to tell tell some of your athletes, maybe as a leader. Tell them what doesn't work, or at least what didn't work with you. Because I mean, even in the training, that's what I'm going to kind of compare it to. When it doesn't work, you're not going to do it, right? Why would you do that if it doesn't work? It's pointless, waste of time. And I think that's really important to figure out what doesn't more than what does.
Yeah, I gotta text your dad after this, because I'm reflecting on sort of what you're saying in terms of like, when we do interviews and especially when it comes to track, the focus is always on the big schools, right? Like you're at a 1A school. The school that I coach at, we have 220 kids in the high school. And so, you know, not to say that coaches at big schools don't have to be intentional, but the margin is so much more razor thin at these smaller schools. One, because the pool of available kids is so much smaller. Um, but I think it's not instrumentally more important, but it's like it takes that much more intentional effort as a coach to like really build that. That's, I mean, I think your dad's a wonderful guy, and I know he's built an incredible program. He was actually the first person that I talked to at the Boulder Running Clinic. I was talking with Eric Detman, the Lincoln High School coach, and I was
I
like,
hate, I
you
hate to
know,
interrupt you. I hate to interrupt you, but I
oh,
do have an interview with him. If you guys are watching, he's a great guy. Go watch that. Anyway, back to you.
yeah, definitely finish watching this one. Then after that, go watch the one with Eric Detman. I take a lot of inspiration from him. But I asked your dad, I was like, how do you do it at a small school? And he said, I hate to distill it down to just a few words, but it's like it's about the people and how you treat them. And I think that's super important, especially for me. I have middle school kids. So I have middle school, I have sixth grade all the way up to I will eventually have seniors. But it's like, there's lots of people that walk away from the sport afterwards, after they're done from high school, and they don't have a relationship with running. And something that I've tried to be really focused on is, how do we create and cultivate that lifelong love with running? Because running is such an amazing thing. It's such a great outlet. Uh, and it's just a great aspect to have in your life, because it opens the door for friendships. I mean, I've started going to run clubs down here in LA, and it's great. So I think, getting back to leadership, as a leader on your team, how can you continue to build that for everyone else so that they have that lifelong appreciation for it?
Absolutely. I love that. So I know we've been kind of bouncing around, but kind of going back maybe on the road a little bit. Um, what did some of your college recruiting process look like?
Yeah, so my college recruiting process was awesome. Obviously, with having won Foot Locker, I think I'd run maybe 4:08 for the mile the year previous, and so I was the number one recruit, and so I took visits to Berkeley, Duke, Wisconsin, Colorado, and Oregon. And at the time, Jerry Schumacher was at Wisconsin. They had an incredible program. Uh, you know, Duke and Cal had programs and academically very very great. And then Mark Wetmore, I was like, I had read Running with the Buffaloes probably 100 times before I went on my visit there. And then Vin Lanana, who was the architect of all the great Stanford teams, had just gotten to Oregon. So um, I felt really privileged to, even just be in the same room as these guys. And so that was a fun process. I mean, I ultimately decided on Oregon because I thought that you know the success that Vin had with the 1,500-meter runners, that's how I envisioned myself. And so I thought, this will give me the best shot to do well in cross country, and also uh, sort of build my career running the 1,500. Looking back, I don't think I would do anything differently. I mean, Jerry ended up leaving Wisconsin. Um, I think I would have done well under Mark Wetmore. I mean, he was definitely right. He told me I was a 5K runner. So, um, Mark Wetmore, if you're watching this, you were right, and you were right about the recruit the year before me. We both ended up 5K runners, or should have been anyway. But I mean, yeah, I mean, seeing all the campuses, and they kind of pull out all the bells and whistles, and so I knew that that wasn't like representative of what the school experience is going to be like. But I also knew my parents were smart. They made me visit Wisconsin and Colorado in January when it was freezing cold, and it did factor in. I was like, I can't handle the cold. I did a tempo run in Wisconsin, and Chris Zelensky went with me. And I was like, don't you, Jerry said you guys have a workout tomorrow. Are you sure you can do this tempo run with me? And he's like, this is like my training pace. And I was like, dang. I felt and that like at the time it took a lot to humble me, but reflecting back, I'm like, man, this guy really put me in my place. Um, so that was a lot of fun. And I knew that Galen Rupp was going to be at Oregon, and there was a really exciting class of freshmen that were looking to go to Oregon as well. And so that was sort of, my mindset was we're going to build Oregon to be this sort of thing. And I think we had like 12 or 13 kids. We had a really strong class from Oregon, the Detmans from York,
Yep.
the Mercados from West Covina, myself, Justin Harbor. I think we had like 6 or 7 Foot Locker kids commit that year. So um, that was ultimately, it was like getting to run at Hayward, being coached by Vin and Andy, and then you got this great crop of kids coming in. Plus, you're matching that with Shadrach, Kiptu Biwat, and Galen Rupp, and some of the other kids we have there. So that was ultimately sort of why I ended up there.
That's awesome. I definitely love how we were talking about the weather before this. For those of you watching, it was 70 degrees yesterday. It's 34 today when we ran. Um, it's not even a joke. I wish I could say it is. That's kind of Midwest weather, and I love that you got your taste of it, and especially when I think it's hilarious how Chris said, "No, it's just my training, it's my recovery pace. You'll be all right."
Yeah, yeah, schooled me, that's for sure.
So, going back to your bio, you were blessed to be very, very good in college, just like high school. You were able to break multiple school records at Oregon. You were part of that sweep. And like I said, I can't stress it enough. Go watch that freaking race. That's awesome. And you said excuse me, you were part of one of the best Oregon squads ever. What uh what was that like, and what was some of your successes like? Good grief, I can't talk.
No, you're all good. Yeah, I mean, it was I think the beauty of sort of Vin and I can't speak to what Vin or Andy's training is really like nowadays, but I mean, Vin's sort of thing was like, let's just get a bunch of talented guys together and let's do some good mileage. I don't think I ever did more than like 85 miles when I was in college, which um, I always had pretty late track seasons. Just either later in my college career, was going overseas, or I would make like an under 23 US team, or stuff like that. So, but the training was pretty standard. I mean, cross country, even in like beginning of track season, standard Tuesday workout was 8 to 10 by 1,000 meters at 10K pace with 90 seconds rest. That was like literally every week. We mixed in hills. I mean, really, it wasn't a whole lot different than my high school training, other than like the volume was a lot higher. The workouts were obviously faster, but I think that was probably one of the biggest benefits of having my high school coach is, he ran professionally, so he sort of knew already. By the time I was a junior or senior, he knew like what sort of workouts I was going to need to do. Another classic, you know, indoor track season sort of workout, we would do like a 4 mile tempo, 5 mile tempo in the morning, come back in the afternoon and do 5 by 300 at mile pace with plenty of rest. Um, I mean, I still use now. I use a modified version of it for our pre-race during the week. But I mean, it was like Mondays were, what was it, 6 by 600, and then or no, we would do 2 times a K. So this was the standard pre-race workout for track season. We would do 2 by 1K at 255, and then we would do it was either 2 or 3 sets of 500, 300, 200, and so we would do it at 75, 45, and then like 28, and that was like standard. We weren't in over our heads. And then the Thursday workout was 4 by 600, 2 by 300. And that was like clockwork every week during the track season. Um, we would also throw in fartlek workouts, whistle workouts, which was more of like a, what do you call it? Unstructured. I don't know why I couldn't think of that. Unstructured fartlek, where Andy would be riding on his bike and he would just torment me by making us do like 6 minutes of on.
Andy Weeding, right?
Andy Powell. But Andy Weeding would be training with us, but he never had to do the 6 minutes. He
Okay.
always got pulled for that. But yeah, Andy was a really great training partner. I mean, he was like, um, I mean, one of the fastest guys I've ever seen, in person from a distance perspective. I mean, he ran 330 and in the 1500, like, yeah, so he had wheels. But Matt Centrowitz and I were also training partners, and he and I used to have competitions um, on those 600s. So we would run 145 was the pace that we were supposed to run for those pre-meet 600s, and we would have a competition of who could get the closest to 145.0. So he would lead two, I would lead two, and we would see whose average got as close to 145 as possible.
So are you I don't know. Are you still close with Central?
Yeah, I still talk to him from time to time. We text every now and again about various things. Same thing with Andy Weeding. I mean, I feel very fortunate that this is the beauty of cross country, is like I'm still friends with my high school uh, cross country teammates, and that was almost 20 years ago that high school has been over. So same thing with my college teammates. I mean, we're in different places in our life. So yeah, maybe we don't talk to each other, when we were out running 7 miles, 8 miles on Peace Trail every day. But that's sort of the brotherhood of cross country is, you spend 5 years with someone, it's hard to not make those connections with everyone.
No, I love your 145 story because that was something that we do here. Except we take turns, we alternate workouts because I mean Midwest, I'm not sure if the West Coast. Oh yeah, the West Coast does, I believe. You guys have pretty good wind, right?
We can get some good wind, yeah.
Okay, so in the Midwest, I mean we get it's about that flat all the way across. So we don't get really any wind blocks, and so we like to alternate reps because usually it's there's a breeze or something, and we like to alternate reps who leads, and we do competitions to see who can get close. And last week we did 200s. I won. I hit. I think our time was 28 flat. I hit 28.00. So big winner,
Nice.
big winner. But yeah,
What
that's
were the hundreds? What were the hundred splits? Were you 14-0, 14-0?
Honestly, I didn't look. I don't know, but I believe so. If I were to take a
Because
guess, I believe so.
we had a teammate, Kenny Klotz, who would hit 145, but he would do it going like 50 and then four. Like his pacing was all messed up. He would hit the time at the end, but Centro and I, we were very like 34.5, 35.0, 35. Like we could just hone in like that. So I think that's a very valuable skill because it I was always a sort of a stickler for it. But I think that that's a very underrated skill in terms of training.
So, coming into kind of my final topic here, you were blessed to be able to run professionally after college. That's super awesome. What was that experience like?
It was pretty terrible. Uh, I mean, it was great from like um, I got to experience a lot of things, and it was a continuation of like I got to try and live out my dream of making the Olympics. When I say it was terrible, it was like I didn't get a contract out of college because I didn't have a great fifth year. And even though my times were either, I mean, I ran 336 for 1500 in 2012, but it's like, I wasn't the hot new thing anymore. And I'm sure there was probably other reasons in there. I, I got to take, some ownership and accountability of that. But
Yeah.
I think, getting to run, I mean, I got to run in Kingston, Jamaica, and I used to do this thing called the Midwest Barnstorming Tour. So I would go run Kansas relays, and then I would do, or maybe it was that this is the other way around, but I got to do the Grand Blue Mile in Des Moines, and then I would run Drake relays, and then I would do the Kansas relays, and um, I still got to do all these great things, and like I think ultimately at the end of the day, it's like I got to live a dream that most people don't even get to attempt, and so I'm very grateful for that. Um, my best finish at USA's was when I was running as a pro. I was sixth in I think 2014. I ended up running 13:35 for 5K, and I think ultimately, um, while I wish my professional career had gone differently, at the end of the day, it's what led me on this path to eventually get to coaching, and I feel very fulfilled with that. And when I finished running professionally, I was like done with the sport. I had had so many soft tissue injuries, pulled hamstrings, strained calves, and I was just like, I'm done. And I for 3 years I didn't even think about, like, I did my own running, like I would just go out for a run, but high school, college, nothing. I was like, I'm never gonna give anything back. And then um, Eric at Lincoln High School, Coach Detman was they were down in the Bay Area where I lived for the Stanford invite. He invited me out. He was like, just come be an assistant coach for the day. And that was like kind of like the hook that brought me back in, and just being back out there. And I think the thing that I think about most in terms of coaching is if I can, track gave me so much. It gave me so many friendships in life, not only from people that I ran with or people that I ran against. You know, Back in my day, there was the die stat message, and I still talk to a lot of those people, who are some people. I met one guy that I've known for 20 years for the first time a few months ago, and we still have those friendships. And so I'm very thankful of all those connections and opportunities in life that it's given me. But I ultimately think about like this sport gave me so much. If I can give that back to just one person, then I will have fulfilled my duty. I don't think it's a zero sum game, so it's not like I've given this back, so now my obligation is done. I love coaching, and I hope that I can continue to give in this sport, um, to a sport that gave me so much, and especially now that gives me so much fulfillment with working with the group of kids that I have, having this opportunity, and I appreciate you having me on. And I think the beauty of track, at least in my experience thus far, is like we all want to work together. And I was like laughing when you what you said about Strava, because when I was growing up, there was so much more. That was like a guarded secret in terms of training, and I feel like nowadays there's so much more. There's like a democratization of the information, and I think that's great because there shouldn't be any secrets. Who cares? Like we should all be trying to help each other run faster, and I think that that's something that I've observed more lately. Is like I also think that people that hide that stuff are they're just you know they think they're way more important than there are. There's no magic wands in track and field. You put in the work, you get it done, and there's more than one way to slice it up because people have been doing this for a long time and they've been successful. Anyone that tells you they have the secret, they don't, unless their name is Jason Retz. He has all the secrets. I'll tell you that much.
That is false advertising. Well,
I'll tell him you said that.
if you if you would like to go look at our training, it's nothing in particular. Go follow my Strava. That just may be me wanting more followers, but it's all right. Um, but
No, and I think it's great that you're sharing that. Like, I mean, it's for like my kids. I took them to Mount Sac for the first time this past year, and I couldn't get them out of school to run the D5 Invitational. D5 is the lowest enrollment.
okay.
But I took them to the invite the next day, and the fact that they saw girls running, like my girls saw girls running, 19 minutes from Mount Sac, and it's like that ticks a bell for that. Like that rings the bell where they're like, oh, there's girls that can do this. Maybe I can do this too. And maybe it's some freshman kid seeing, your Strava and being like, oh, he was running 7 minutes for tempo. I haven't looked at your Strava, sorry, but now he's running 6 minutes. Like this is something that I can do, and that's what I think is like the beauty of this like democratization of information is people can see that and like they can use that to hopefully make themselves better. So I think that that's the open source nature of track and training now. I think is a good thing. Sometimes it can be a little much, but I think overall it's a great thing.
Absolutely. So you've had some great answers, but moving into the most important questions in my eyes. These are a little more fun, and I got three of them for you. They're going to be a little more fun, so you're going to have to put your thinking cap on. What is your favorite dad joke?
Oh man, favorite dad joke. Um, why did the bean soup call for specifically 239 beans?
I've never heard this. Why?
Because if you added one more, it'd be too farty.
That I never heard that before. That's good. I like that one. I like that. So, my next question, if you do, what type of music are you listening to right now?
Oh, right now, I've been on a big currency is a big one. MF Doom is always in my rotation. Um, JPEG Mafia and Danny Brown, their album that just came out is one of my favorites. And TV Girl. TV Girl is an excellent band.
Okay. Okay. I have to take your word for it. Maybe I have
Yeah,
to.
mostly hip hop, but I do venture a little into the indie rock side.
Okay. Okay. I respect that. I respect that. That's hip hop and rap are pretty popular here. From the Midwest, personally. Um, yes, I am stereotypical. I love country music. It's all I listen to. That and older rock music. Love Motley Crue.
Yeah,
And
Dirt Road Anthem's one of my favorite songs. That's a country song.
it is a country song. That's right.
I
J-
know that one.
Jason Aldean is fantastic. Uh,
Yeah.
and finally, this one, I love to see your people's reactions on this one. This is by far my favorite question to ask. If you were to go back and tell young AJ one thing, what would that one thing be? It doesn't have to be about running, but it doesn't really matter about the age. But if you were to go back in time and tell yourself one thing, what would that one thing be? Got to make you think.
There's so much. There's so much. Probably get into data science earlier. I honestly have been thinking about that a lot. Like, yeah, if I could like go back, I'd be like, professional running's not going to work out. Like, still do it and embrace it, but you should like use that economics degree and learn more about data science. That's what I would tell myself. Because I could have done it when I had more time and not professional obligations and stuff. So that's what I would tell myself.
Right. That is by far an outlier of an answer, but I'm not hating on it. I like that answer. I like that. Definitely using your strengths, I guess you could say.
Yeah, data scientists make like 150, 200K a year. We should all be, I mean, not, we don't have to all strive for that, but that would be nice, wouldn't it?
Yeah, that would be. So I may have to get into data science while you're at it.
Yeah, you ever have questions about econ, data analytics? You want to learn SQL? I'll teach you SQL.
All right. At least I know a guy now
Yep.
before I get into it. Thank you so much for your time tonight. You did an absolutely amazing job, and I'm so excited to watch this back. And as always, go Yankees. I told you we'd bring up baseball. How are you thinking about the Padres going into the season?
I've got very low expectations. I think it's going to be, I think if they get over, let the young guys play, let the young guys cook. Jackson Merrill, um, you know, um, Jackson Merrill. Who else do we got? They got Graham Pauley. They got Jairo Iriartes. Got Michael King who came over in that Yankees deal. Brito. So I think let the young kids cook, reset the tax luxury window, and really get after it in 25.
Love it. I love it. Thank you so much again for hopping on. You had some great answers, and like I said, I hope you have a great rest of your night. And as always, go Yankees.
Cheers. Thanks for the opportunity, Lance. Talk to you soon.
Absolutely. Thank you. Bye, AJ.